Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's awesome podcast talking about all things zombie, undead, blood sucking, I guess. I'm H.I. Conrad. I'm here with my intrepid co host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Moist.
Ugh.
Those
What's
check.
that? Ugh.
That's the state of my state.
Sweet. Well, it's been we've gotten sort of a respite from the drought here, or the drought, or whatever you want to call it. So on both coasts it's been a little crazy. So, you know,
People are calling it the drought.
no, the drought. That
Oh
was
my,
being
I was
silly.
kind of concerned
Um
there for a second. Okay.
no. Anyway. Um yeah, so we're now but we have some sunshine today after a few days of rain, and I think we're gonna probably have a pretty messy Thanksgiving, so yay. But you are even in worse. I was seeing like things about all the trees falling down. So hopefully no trees falling down on your house, and no flooding.
There's a couple of redwoods on either side of my house
Mm.
that I'm always a little bit concerned about, but
Well, their root
there's
systems are pretty shallow, so that's like they have a tough go of it when it really gets crazy like this.
no, I mean, yeah,
Fire they can deal with. Rain, no.
we'll see. They're they're still standing strong, so
Well, I'm glad you have not been washed away and are here today to chat with me about the Radleys, which is you know, a a vampire film that came out in the UK, and it stars Damian Lewis of Homeland and Forsyth Saga fame and Band of Brothers, I guess, and then Kelly Macdonald, who was, I mean, to me that she's famous from Train Spotting, but she's been in a ton of stuff since then. So I think we're gonna have quite a few things to talk about here, and that is meaning in the future. So I was a little bit surprised, but there's one of these I raise a skeptical eyebrow at, but we'll get into that. So Undead series revival. This is the graphic novel based show. It looks pretty good, but I don't think it's going to come out till much later in 2025. They're being a little squirrely about a release date, and I have not yet read this graphic novel. I feel like I may have read maybe one like very like a synopsis or something like that. I feel like we talked about this when it came up before. So I might make a go of it before this comes out into a show, but it looks pretty good.
yeah. I couldn't remember if we had talked about this before. The name seems familiar. The woman from Winona Earp is going to be attached to it, and then the news that dropped this past week is that CM Punk, a WWE wrestler actor, is also going to be on this show. They're trying to make it seem like it's not a typical genre approach, and honestly, I have no idea. So we will see. You said you might have read one of the books. Do you have any
I
recollection of the
feel
overall
I feel
plot?
like it's like a little bit of a like I don't want to say like it feels like zombie meets like crime procedural kind of, so there's like a lot of other stuff going on. I have to really sit down and make myself read graphic novels these days. It's just like I read a lot of stuff on Kindle and whatever, but Kindle doesn't really that format doesn't work because the Kindle's too small. But I have from time to time read them on the iPad, but usually when I'm reading graphic novels, I actually still like the paper version of it. So I might make the investment. I might check this out. So I'll give an update on that if I actually bite the bullet and watch this. But I look forward to seeing what they come up with. This could be a lot of fun. Um, and then one thing that just it looks terrible, honestly, is
Oh,
this
yeah.
weird this it's called Dick Dynamite 1944 or 1944 Dick Dynamite. I'm not sure what, but it has like a pretty over the top poster and trailer. It seems like and those just even the way that they're talking about it, like the hyperbole surrounding it, makes me think this is going to be awful.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I think that's what they're kind of going for is ridiculous over the top. They also proudly have all these cameos from like rockers.
Yeah.
musician. So it's kind of like a
Mm.
punk aesthetic, but also Nazis and zombies and a lot of guns. I
New
didn't
York.
see I didn't
Oh,
see anything that looked like high quality anything here.
oh,
So
it
maybe the
look.
music will be really good. I don't know.
Oh no, it does not look good. I mean, it's gonna be like, I mean, it's definitely a grindhouse kind of a feel. So I guess if you're doing that, maybe. But there's such a dearth of plot and information that I'm a little skeptical, but maybe it'll be so stupid it'll be good. So we'll have to judge later, I suppose.
Perhaps, yes. Then there was also some news about the Marvel Zombies, a release date, a specific release date, but I'd already forgotten it by the time I went to write it down. So all I got was October 2025. And honestly, that's so far away that I don't even care which day it is in October they're going to be picking. It'll become clearer as October approaches. This article was in Geek Tyrant, and then there were some spoilers as far as plot in some of the episodes, which I
Yeah.
didn't appreciate. So
I didn't mind a little bit of it. I am excited to see a specific character come back. I don't know if you read, did you read to the end or
no, I stopped after they ruined like I don't know. To me, it was like talking about the stuff with Shang-Chi. I was like, oh, cool, Shang-Chi's gonna be in this. And they're like, and then this happens and this happens. I'm like, come on, man, I don't want to know that.
yeah.
There's only 4 episodes in the whole in the damn thing. I don't need to know anything that's gonna happen. I'm gonna watch it,
All
but
right.
with only 4 episodes, I need to preserve some of that, novelty.
I will just say I'm happy that Kamala Khan's going to be in it.
Hmm.
So that's exciting. That's my
I
only
mean, we knew that because she's done interviews talking about how she's the Frodo,
right.
etc.
And
before.
so I'm just excited about it and can't wait to see that part of it. Um, and then I don't know how we missed this one or if it's just something that's coming now because like it's making the rounds because I guess it was in like a horror film festival or something. But there's a French thriller called Mads, a French zombie thriller rather, and it's made up weirdly because we just talked about the Argentinian film that was like made up of several vignettes, and this
Hmm.
is also made up of vignettes, and it's getting pretty good reviews. Just an interview with the director and some of the decisions he made from filming, and it looks pretty interesting. So I think I'm going to check it out, and maybe we'll talk about it later if it turns out
Yeah.
to be good.
There's an article on Dread Central where you can look up Mad S. I'm not sure if it's Mads or Mad S because it's all one word. It's apparently this movie's already available to stream on Shudder and potentially on Amazon Prime. So I don't know how, yeah, like you said, that one kind of got past the goalie. But also, it's not like we don't look for zombie stuff every week of the
Well,
year.
that's why I was a little bit surprised, and it was kind of like wedged into this whole article about a lot of other things. Like so we'll look forward to talking about that a little bit later on. We have a lot of things lined up.
So
So
many.
so many
There's
things.
also like a trailer now for the second season of no, what's it called? The Idaho Witches. What is wrong with my brain? What
Idaho witches with
you know
that.
that famous Anne Rice novel about the Idaho family of
Oh,
witches.
the
What?
Mayfair witches.
Yeah, the Mayfair Witches.
Okay,
There's that
I
second
think
season
you
is
should.
already it's being
I think
trailered.
I think you should write in a suggested change to be the Idaho witches.
Those Idaho witches, gosh darn it.
Where did that even come from?
Their beautiful
Um,
landscapes, love of potatoes.
okay. Yeah, so Idaho Witches, we'll watch that. What are we gonna watch next time before we get to the
Oh,
end of
that's a great question. Do you want to stick with
Silo?
another movie?
I thought we were
You
gonna
want
silo it,
you
no?
want to break into Silo? We can break into
I
Silo.
do. I'm gonna break into Silo. I've been patient.
Let's break into another Silo, perhaps.
Cool,
I
cool.
don't know. I don't know
All
what's
right,
gonna happen.
let's do it. All right. So we'll definitely keep an eye on Mad S or Mads or whatever it is, and that'll we'll come at you and give a review later on. But before that, we're gonna talk about Radleys, which is this British film that I started to get into earlier. It just became available in the US in October, which is kind of, it's on Amazon Prime. and pretty good cast, and lots of known names, but I actually thought that the younger members of the cast were really kind of awesome.
So good.
And
Yeah.
I almost wished that that had been developed a little bit more, honestly. That's like my one kind of note. And a couple of notes, but overall I was like, oh, these are like some pretty these actors were great. I would love to see them in other things.
Dude, yeah, Kelly Macdonald, I think I might be in love with her still.
Everybody's still in love with her. She's amazing. Who wouldn't be? She's just amazing.
Oh God, she's so adorable in this movie, and her little
Yeah.
Glaswegian accent. My
hmm
God,
And then Damian Lewis seems to be having a really fun time playing himself,
and against
or
himself.
and against
Yeah,
himself.
I was worried. I was wondering if it was going to be like Dreamcatcher, where he suddenly had, a weird alter ego. I don't know if you remember that. That was not a great film. Was it a
No,
Stephen
not.
King,
Yeah.
yeah, adaptation? Some of them just don't work. But it's not like he was playing two characters. He was playing two characters though in that film. Like one of them was nuts. I just don't remember if he had an outer body experience. But here he's just talk. He's just a twin. He's his own twin.
Yeah, but
Eh,
and he's pretty good.
Yeah, and he has to
Overall.
play. He has to act against himself a lot, which I
hmm
don't know. I'm sure they just find a guy who can stand in for him. But there's also some. There's got to be some green screen going on too.
Oh, definitely. But we've got them, and then the kids are played by Baxendale, who plays the son Rowan, Bo Bragason as Claire, Radley, and then the sort of you know, I don't want like the love interest of Rowan is Jay like Kurgo, who I felt like I had seen in other things.
Yeah, I've.
He plays
I know him. Oh, go ahead. What's your thing you've seen him
Oh
from?
no, but he plays Evan Copley, and his
Yeah.
father's played by Sean Parks, and that's Jared Copley.
I
And
never got his dad's name. I just called him Evan's dad the whole movie.
yeah, I didn't remember what his actual name was either. But in any case, really just a fantastic cast overall. But the kids were especially good, the teenagers.
Yeah. Jeff and the guy playing this guy Jay is playing Evan. He was in a short-lived limited series on Netflix called Half Bad, the son of the devil himself.
Oh,
And it was kind of about two factions of witches, and he grew up belonging to one, but being the scion of another. It was honestly I thought it was a really good show. Of course, it got canceled by Netflix. Had an incredible soundtrack. I rather enjoyed it. And like I said, it's a limited series, so it was like, I don't know, 6 episodes or something. But I do recommend it if it's still up there. I,
wait,
I I went out and found the music from like certain scenes. I was like, I've got to listen to this song again.
wait, what was it called?
Half Bad, I think. Am I,
Oh,
am I saying it wrong?
no. But yeah, I would definitely check that out. It sounds pretty good. Um,
It's
but
based on a novel, looks like. But yeah, he was the lead in that. So
hmm,
and he did it. He was great in that too. So as soon as I saw his face, I was like, "Oh, it's that guy."
hmm. So yeah, I would definitely check that out. I liked him a lot. I thought he played everything in this pretty well. And so that's the cast in general. And let's talk about the premise of the film, which I thought there were some pretty clever things that they did with this. I do think maybe it could have been tightened up a little bit, and as I said, I think I would have liked a little bit more about the storyline of the teenagers. But overall, I almost wish that this was like a mini series versus a film, because I feel like there were certain storylines that could have been played out in a better way, in a more interesting way, and just to get a little bit more behind that.
Yeah, let me just really quickly totally agree with you and echo that I think Clara starts out as being like the central character, although it's going to be Rowan because he has voiceover. But then
Right,
she disappears for like the second half of the
right.
movie, it feels like.
And every scene she's in is good, and there's like
Yeah.
an especially like there's a few really great scenes with her, but it just doesn't really linger on her all that often. It doesn't really stay focused on her.
I
But
mean, partially because it's like, what is her relationship with Evan? It
right.
feels it's like it's really friendly,
hmm
but yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's all you could do with it. Like there wasn't enough more drama for her to get into other than what she's discovered about herself and her journey, which I feel like they set it up to be a lot about that.
And
But then
it and it wasn't.
no, it
So,
kind of turns into Rowan's story about that and the fact that he's into Evan. That was interesting. Like, but I don't know. I thought there was going to be more with Claire, so I'm just kind of
I
reiterating.
thought it was going to be overall more, and it was about Rowan, but not as much as, again, not as much as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to focus on both of them because this is a pretty big revelation that their parents have been dealing with, and have always known, but this is new for them. And even the reaction when they're told what they are is kind of funny. But the whole lead up to it, I thought was pretty clever. Um, and I do think they play the vampirism as like addiction piece, the blood addiction piece very well.
Hmm.
Even with the focus of how they have to try to distract themselves. And I think that this is especially clear with Helen Radley, Kelly Macdonald character. Um,
The scene where he tells her to breathe and she starts doing that thing with her nostrils, but the
yep,
faces she's making while she's doing it,
yep,
I
yep.
just melted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
she,
awesome.
she is pretty awesome. We've also had a little bit of there's a little bit of voiceover at the beginning and end provided by the guy playing Rowan. And I don't love either of those bits of voiceover.
No,
They don't really serve the plot
nope.
very much. They're supposed to be talking to his like inner feelings or whatever, but they kind of just they go in one ear and out the other. The only thing I remember him saying is he says all I know is I'm a freak. It does set up that now we know that he's gay and he's not out because he just takes pictures of boys from a distance, as he said. Um, and that kind of sets up some of his he's kind of shy. His sister thinks he's um basically she thinks he's asexual, I think. And but then like we kind of leave his point of view other than the fact that he is just still this like shy stuttering guy who stares at people a lot.
Yeah, and I mean the whole freaks thing, that was one part of it because they use this throughout
True.
the film, and it's sort of like you see that people are graffitiing their house or they're graffitiing like the fence, they graffiti the camper thing. But who's doing this and what exactly is this family doing that people think that this is an okay thing to do? Because
People label themselves as freaks a lot in this film. Rowan does it, and Evan does it too.
yeah,
If anybody knew how much of a freak they were, they'd run away screaming or something. He says, and he's clearly not like he's. And is it used to be to describe people who are suspected of being vampires? I don't think so because
no.
nobody believes in vampires except for a couple of conspiracy theorists and the vampires themselves, and the helpline, which is one of the funnier parts of the movie is the fact
Yeah.
that there's this whole support system for vampires out there.
Yep. And whoever's doing that voice is excellent.
Yeah, very good.
And the woman
So,
helpline.
but yeah, I'm not really sure what this freaks label is supposed to be used for. Obviously, Evan's dad does graffiti that on their RV at some point, but nobody's gonna see that because it's facing the house. Like I don't know what he was, that wasn't quite thought through, I think. Uh, so we start off with this birthday party. Here we're seeing that Helen is probably got OCD. She's really organized. She's kind of, perfect. That Clara is throwing up constantly because she switched to being a vegan. That's provided by Rowan's
Hmm.
voiceover. So some of that does provide a little exposition. And that the dad, Peter, and Lorna, the neighbor, have some sort of weird connection, or really it's more one way. It's Lorna to Peter.
Yeah, except it's tempting to him, and so
Yeah.
that's another part of this tension.
What did you think of Damian Lewis's makeup in these early scenes? I guess all throughout in a way, but in these early
I thought it was
as Peter.
I thought it was good. He looks, I mean, look, they do a good job at making him seem like kind of drawn and um I don't know, like it, the the contrast between him and his brother, and it's like he is living as they're saying they're abstainers, so they're not living on human blood, but that actually they look unhealthy to some extent or
I mean,
slightly unhealthy.
Clara really does at that party, right?
Right.
She's extremely pale. They've put her in some like unflattering outfit.
Right. Well, also because she's been vegan, she's probably even more wasting away than they normally would be, and so I thought that the makeup actually is really well done and subtle.
Hmm.
It wasn't over the top, but you notice it even more though when he and his brother end up meeting because his brother almost looks like tan compared
Yeah,
to
I mean,
him.
Damian Lewis is a really pale guy. Like
Yeah.
that's just him, right? So there's not a whole lot you can do. That's what I was kind of getting at, that I don't know that he looked that much healthier as Will as compared with Clara, who starts the movie as like almost a ghost, and then by that breakfast scene the next day, she like the transformation is a 1,000% to me.
Well, and they throw some lipstick on her. Her
Well,
hair's
yeah, maybe
done and
that's
all
easier to
that.
do with a girl, maybe because yeah, she can put some blush on,
I
and
mean, to your
that would,
point,
yeah,
I think Damian Lewis is just a pale soul,
yeah.
but they definitely have some fake tan going on with Will.
He's
So
just shirtless a lot. They have Will.
they do have to show off his abs a lot, and I was like, huh, that's a choice.
You know
Uh,
what? 51-year-old Damian Lewis doing a bunch of topless thirst traps. Well done, sir. Hats off to you.
is he 51? I thought he was older than that.
50
But
something.
he's 50 something. He looks great though. He looks great. But also but that actually was when I noticed how they did the tan with Will is because when he does like show off his abs, he's so incredibly pale compared
Yeah.
to like his neck and his face.
He's reflecting the
He's kind
sky.
of reflective.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, maybe you should have evened out that makeup a
Can
little
we
bit.
also throw a shout out to this town where they set this? What a beautiful
Oh
location they
yeah.
found.
Where is
Like
that? Because that looks
they say they shot it in London and Yorkshire. I assume then it's on the coast of northern England somewhere, but my goodness,
oh,
like
it is beautiful. It made me want to go there. I mean,
for real.
it
It's like
kind of
this,
reminded me a little of the Broadchurch scenery when they did that show in the UK, the
wasn't
UK.
that in southern England though, I think
But
Broadchurch.
it's the same kind of like these
Yeah.
beautiful cliffs and like but the abbey that's sort of like a ruin of an abbey. That thing looked so cool. So, and the cinematography was really great. And the color, like the color, whoever the colorist was, this was beautiful. The cinematography is gorgeous. Director of photography rather. So this was beautiful. Especially when they did some of those aerial shots, I thought
Hmm.
it was very pretty and picturesque. And I mean, I think that's kind of what they're trying to get at is that you have honestly, this family kind of trying to hide in plain sight in this incredibly like suburban, slightly rural town. Like it's pretty small town.
Yeah, it is a small town, but like he's a doctor. She doesn't have a job. No, she doesn't, which is interesting considering how much she wants to be busy, later on. She just has
Book club,
hobbies. Yeah.
PTA.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can we try to say it how Kelly Macdonald says? Book, book
Book
club.
club. I
Oh
know.
God. I could listen to her. Like I wish she would if she does a podcast, I have to find it because I could listen to her talk forever.
Oh yeah.
I
Got a
need
great.
to
She has
dial it back,
a
but
great thing. She's got a great thing going on. It never stops. She's really awesome.
yeah.
Um,
So the location is beautiful. The first couple scenes are about Peter's birthday party, as we said. Lorna can't believe he's 47, and I'm like, he's 50 something.
mhm.
But yeah, Damian Lewis aging very well as we know. There's a bit of a glance between Lorna and Peter, and then the kids go out. We also meet Evan and Tilly. Tilly is Lorna's daughter and doesn't really have much of a role in this movie other than to make out with Evan in the first act and then glare at him and Rowan in the third act. And then Tilly's role is completely done. I wonder if there was some other scenes that didn't make it into the movie with her because she seems like a character they meant to make a bigger deal.
Yeah, I was feeling the same thing. It felt like there was going to be more of a clash maybe between her and Rowan, because of their fight over um, Evan.
Yeah.
Like she's really, I mean, she is definitely marking her territory with him because
Yeah.
she thinks that Clara may have some designs on him, and then later she sees him with Rowan, and there's like a lot of like looks from her, but it doesn't actually end up into anything. So I feel like something was there that we didn't get to see.
But
Uh,
potentially that's why, it feels like the storylines of the kids are not as developed as they might have been. This movie has an 111-minute runtime, so in that sweet spot of not too
Mhm.
long, but maybe, I don't know, maybe a few more scenes with the kids would have been helpful. Um, so and yeah, when Tilly asks Clara if she is interested in Evan, she's like, no, that would be like hooking up with my brother. But
Right.
he's also been described as the new kid in town. So it's what they do make it seem convincingly that Clara and Evan are close and have a good relationship and that it's platonic. I don't really understand how they went there. I mean, kids do make friends very quickly. That's true. So I just like, how is he the new kid in town? And they have this deep connection that is completely, you know, platonic, I guess. I
Well,
was kind of
I
curious about that.
I do think that kids make connections quickly, but I also think she recognizes in him maybe something she sees in her brother, even if she's not able to fully put that, you know, out there. And maybe she's afraid to put that out there because Rowan hasn't really talked to her about this. But she definitely knows something is up with Rowan, and I think she recognizes that in Evan too.
Maybe.
So I think that's what it is. I don't think that line was a mistake, that it would be like hooking up with her brother, right?
Okay. Yeah. Although they don't hook up, she and Rowan. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, probably a good thing.
There's an important sort of scene here of Rowan and Clara are stealing or taking beers from their parents' garage fridge to go out for a quote unquote real party or the kids' party to away from the dad's birthday party, which is good. Out just going to be out in a field.
As
Because
all good kids parties are.
yeah, this comes back in the second act when he's stealing bottles out of Will's fridge in the
Yeah,
RV. And then they have this weird like rager in broad daylight in the field of a church
right.
where they're listening to music, they're dancing, and they're making out, or at least Tilly and Evan are making out. Um, and we meet what is one in a line of infinite bad characters called Stuart. And
Yeah.
I don't know when this will change for me. It might just be forever. There's a good Stewart on The Diplomat, which is a show I know we talk about every so often, and you're always like, I can't watch that show. But there's a character named Stewart who is the ambassador's second in command for the British Embassy, and he's a good steward. So I'm just saying there's one out there. But otherwise, most stewards are bad. And Stuart Harper is a jock, and he's no exception. He's finicky about his sunglasses, he's patronizing, he's douchey.
He's a sexual assailant,
Sexual predator.
predator.
Yeah. And so Clara is just like they were having a good time. Stuart shows up and she's like, I'm gonna go home. I don't, I want to go home. I'm not feeling well. And she hasn't been feeling well. We know that because she was throwing up earlier and she's a vegan and apparently that's a hard lifestyle.
Yeah,
Uh,
I gotta say, this steward is a particularly rough steward because like, she he's following her. She's saying she doesn't feel well. She's not making it up. She ends up puking on his shoes, and his next thing is like, it'd be really great to get it on right now. Like, what?
and the proposition is we don't have to kiss. He's just taking off his pants. Yeah.
Right.
This
It's like
guy goes from bad to so
first.
much worse. Yeah. And I think we all kind of know what's going to happen here because we've seen the trailer. We know the premise of the movie based on that. It's the whole Abigail problem in a way, that you kind of know, you know that something is going to happen and it's probably going to be bad for Stuart. But then also we don't feel bad about that because he's terrible. But why couldn't his name
Right.
have been Baxter? That's all I'm saying.
True. I also think that I did actually, even though we had seen the trailer, I just thought this was pretty well done and very well choreographed. And it's meant to be, I think, somewhat satisfying from a instant karma perspective. So I do like how this all works out. And I do think that the actors here were really good. And especially, Clara doesn't understand what's happening and is really taken over by her just full on vampiric instinct that she has no idea what's happening or how to control it. And so but I do like how Stuart, not you, Stuart, obviously,
Thank you.
but how Stuart the tables are immediately turned and he's terrified of her. And
Well,
this,
she throws him like 10 feet. So
yeah.
I think that yeah, he knows that something ain't right at this point. And
I think he also knows he totally messed up, and yeah, this is not going to end well for him. But I do think that this was all acted out really well, and her shell shock after this happens, and this whole thing, how it plays out, how she calls her parents for help, which is what a lot of kids would do. I don't
yep,
know what else you would do, and their reaction to it is just incredibly like, ah, okay. I don't want to say matter of fact, but it kind of is, even when.
they're concerned, but they're also unhesitating. Yeah, I liked
Right.
it.
And then there's this whole like, don't breathe through your nose because like like keep control because like they're triggered by it. And even
Yeah, Helen's having a real hard time with this
yeah,
with the scene of the crime, and Clara's just kind of sitting there looking at them covered in blood. Her costuming is really good in the scene because she
yep,
has that fur collar and that those kinds of
mad.
clothes work really well with being soaked in blood. So I did enjoy that too. Yeah, so she was completely killed, young Mr. Harper, and like the Fang makeup also was pretty good. There's
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
What did you think about sort of the their thing in this film just about okay, they taste the blood and then they have almost like and they cannot keep it in, but it's almost like this whole howl thing that happens and the fangs come out. Like it's almost like
No, it's an orgasm.
an orgasm.
Yeah.
And then it's like all of them have this, and it's just sort of like, how would you be able to stop that? That is
We've
like,
all seen Damian Lewis's O face now multiple times.
oh dear, I know it's a little rough.
The only person who's we don't is Kelly Macdonald because Helen never drinks blood this whole movie, does she?
She doesn't, but she keeps having pretty rough
She's also having some fun times in
fantasies.
the bath. Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
but we don't see her do this. And given how close she is to the edge and what's happening to her, it's kind of amazing that she doesn't. But
Yeah.
I think that it's pretty interesting this twist that they put on it and the things that they have to do to kind of get through it. I also do like Peter's matter of fact ways that he's like just trying to, he guides Rowan and Rowan just keeps looking at him like, I cannot believe that you all decide to have children. Like, how
Mm.
dare you? And it's like this whole like,
That was an interesting scene. I
yep.
mean, they just come right out and they're not trying to hide it anymore. They're like, so, and I like that Rowan was even in this family meeting. This is after they've dragged the body somewhere and come home and changed Claire's clothes. And Helen has explained away her blood-covered clothing as paintballing to one of the guests of their party because this is all happening while they have people over
Oh
too.
yeah.
Um, and then they have their family meeting after the party's over, and it's just like, so yeah, Clara killed a boy in your class or in your school. And this could have we always knew this might happen.
And we're cleaning up the mess.
Yeah.
Um, I think what's interesting here is that they both kind of knew that her becoming vegan would maybe do this. So it's interesting that they weren't going to take her aside and basically talk to her about it
You
like
think you
before
think
it
that would
happened.
work? You think that would work on a teenager? Like,
I
listen,
mean,
veganism isn't good.
at least she would have known what was happening to her, or at least like had
Hmm.
some kind of a, I don't know, it wouldn't have been a surprise to her, maybe. So I don't know. Maybe they just felt like it wouldn't happen and they were hoping that it wouldn't, which is kind of how it
Well,
felt.
like Peter says in this scene, there's no guidebook for this. We're doing the best we can. The kind of
But
thing
there
that parents tell each other constantly.
but there is a guidebook since they have that little self.
Yeah, they have the abstainer's handbook, but this I don't think that that has anything to do with parenting. It's more about apparently it's a whole like step-by-step process of how vampirism works, as we find out later. Uh, anyway, I'm loving these family dynamic scenes where there's all four of them in the room. Those are pretty good. Clara doesn't really talk during this scene, but by breakfast the next morning, she's eating blood sausage. She's had a glow up overnight. Her hair's looking, luscious. Or she's probably got a lot more makeup on, and she's telling her parents to, F off and you lied to me for my whole life, and I'm gonna go do whatever I want.
Hmm.
It's and her parents kind of just like put their heads down, and this is part of their personality is they're kind of like retiring uh internal, I don't know, like Peter's head is on his desk in every scene that he's at work.
Yep.
So it kind of gives you a sense of where how he deals with things. He just kind of like shrinks into himself. And
Well,
they,
he did pick a profession that involves drawing blood, so that's also
yeah, and that
interesting.
scene, that scene when Lorna comes to get to figure out why she's been feeling faint, he's like, oh God, yeah, talk about Damian Lewis's faces that he makes in this film.
Yeah.
We also started to see Evan's dad. Did you say his name's Jared?
Yeah.
Okay. And he was like looking out the window at their house, looking over a wall at the kids having a party, and yeah, basically just kind of checking them out and getting bringing his son home. So
I
we know that
guess
he's like a weird voyeur or what I don't know.
well, he's a former cop.
We know that eventually because Evan explains it, but at first you're just like, who is this creepy guy? But then he does turn out to be Evan's dad.
He does give a very creepy stalkery thing, kind of crazy kind of vibes. So much so that just even him watching like the kids and showing up like there it feels like there's a piece missing here that there's a reason why he knows the Radleys are what they are because up until this happened with Clara, none of them are all of them are abstaining from blood.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point.
so that's kind of to me it's like how does he know what they are? And maybe there's signs that we don't know, or maybe he knows about them through some other channels, but that would have, to me, that was like a plot hole that I would have liked
I think
solved,
partially it's that he suspects everybody's a vampire, and then once there's been a killing
maybe.
and he starts to connect dots and he starts to build his crazy wall, then he narrows it down to the Radleys.
Yeah, I kind of like the showing of the crazy wall beginning, right? Like you don't always get to see that
He
kind of act.
draws it right on the wall. Like that is
Yeah, it's
some
like,
commitment.
oh, that is commitment, man. You're not getting that off. Oh, just, you're gonna have to paint over that. Um, but I like again, like that's why as I was watching this whole thing and just at the end, I said, oh, this would have been really great as just like maybe a six-part episode or that you could get into like some of the different character pieces.
Oh,
It
for
felt,
sure.
it felt like they were trying to cram a little too much, so you don't really get enough about him.
Mm.
And we do know that his wife has been killed by vampires, according to him. His son thinks that she's just left them. We see photos of her with Evan, and we see him, like we see Jared looking at those photos and talking about her. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more context to that. Like if I don't always like flashbacks, but it would have been nice to see like why he thought that or how he knew that,
Mm.
and whether or not he hid something from his son, which it seems like he did. But and I what I really thought was going to happen is that she was going to show up as a vampire.
Oh,
And so I thought that's where they were going with that, just because it felt like there was this kind of big character missing. And they didn't do that, but I thought that would have been like a fun little twist.
I agree
It,
with you. And I think it's a testament to the world building that they do in this movie that you're like, I could see this being a 6 episode show or
right.
more.
So I wanted a
Yeah.
lot more with him, and I wanted a lot more with his relationship with Evan and that whole storyline with the mother and how this plays out, because Evan's clearly been dealing with his father's paranoia and he loves his dad. So he's actually like very kind to him, but he also is like, Dad, you're messing up my my chances of building relationships. And this is like, you know, the one the one the one time where Dad's right and they are vampires, right? And so that's kind of a bummer for Evan. But but I just wish that had been a little bit more developed and then with the kids' stories, especially with how they're dealing with this new aspect that's completely bizarre, completely a surprise to them. Um, and then for Rowan, as you said, they get a little more into it, mostly with him, but it's that as well as his sexuality at the same time. And then there's also a lot of things about consent. And so that's like the whole thing about having somebody in thrall, somebody who you've converted is basically tied to you forever, but it isn't love. Um, and they didn't quite neatly get around that,
I
obviously.
don't think they did at all. I think that's my biggest problem with this whole
Yep.
movie. I was gonna talk about it at the end, but
Yeah.
unless are we at the end?
I don't think we're at the end yet, but they explore that and we see them explore that with the relationship um, that Helen has with Will and with Peter. And that's like a big twist that I thought was interesting. And again, one of those things that I wish could have been explored a little bit more, but I thought that that was probably one of the most successful pieces where they're really you're finally understanding what's happening because she's pretty upset when Will shows up. She knows it's necessary to help Claire through the time, which is why she's fine with
I
it.
don't think that they really do a good job though of showing that Will is helping Clara because he never does. He's helping Rowan-ish. Really, he's just tempting him into becoming a vampire younger than his sister did. I think really what they brought Will there to do was get rid of the Stuart Harper body because neither of them could get close to it. I have a feeling that's the only
Well, they
reason they
got
really
rid of the
wanted him there.
body and then he took care of the cops for her. So that's how he helped her.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true, but that they didn't know that that was going to be something they would have to do, and it wouldn't they wouldn't have had to if Clara had not like antagonized the cops during the interview.
True. But he still has the powers because he's drinking blood and they don't. So,
Right.
and Claire's too new probably to know how to do it. Um, but anyway, they bring him onto the scene, and I feel like Helen's reactions to him and her
Oh,
act
so good.
are really good.
She's just like making these little faces at Peter, like I can't deal with this. But obviously, I kind of thought with their relationship that they would have been on the same page about Will. I'm not sure then why it seemed like Peter was hesitant in bringing him into their life. I guess because he's still using.
Mhm.
That would have been a stressor for them. But she obviously has a much bigger reason for not wanting to be around Will, which is the fact that she is in thrall to him on some level, and he's the twin brother of her
Yeah.
husband.
Gee
Not
whiz.
cool.
And then it gets even, more complicated because she's basically Peter thought he made her, but he didn't. Will made her, and which is terrible because he looks like Will. She's got a lot of complicated and conflicting feelings going on
Yeah.
and a lot of guilt. And Peter does too because he thinks she's enthralled to him and that it's not actually love. So that's the part that really, to me, doesn't, it leaves a lot to be desired at the end. Because
Yeah, that part and the Evan and Rowan storyline.
no, that's what I mean. It's like, so, I
Well, I
guess,
mean, the just because so one of the things that Rowan finds out on this helpline when he's just like pumping them for information about vampirism, he's like, "So if I bite someone and convert them, we'll be together forever and they'll love me." And she's like, "No, it's the opposite of love, but it ends when your converter is killed or dies."
I,
So does that mean that you're not a vampire anymore, or is it just that you no longer have the compulsion?
I think you no longer have the compulsion. Uh,
So basically, that Peter and Helen can just have a normal relationship after Will
yeah.
is dead by the end of the movie.
Yeah, and so actually that's where I thought they were going to go with it since they had just killed Will. I thought they were going to convert Evan with Will's blood so that that he could be just sort of on his own versus in thrall to Rowan, but they don't do that. And Rowan converts Evan and they
They
like
have zero conversation about consent.
no. And
His
well,
dad just says, "I don't want him to die." And I thought, based on all of this, like, I didn't want this stuff from Helen, although she, it's a little complicated because she did want it on some
yeah,
level, but she didn't initially. They, Rowan does not ask Evan, "Do you want to become a vampire and be enthralled to me for the rest of your life?" Like, that's not something that they talk about, but then he
no,
just does it.
they have a little smile and then he just does it and that's that. Like his dad wants him, but Evan never consents. And so that's kind of messed up. And then now he's in thrall to Rowan and what's that going to be like? And I mean, they're
But they
holding
don't
hands
deal
and
with that
stuff.
at all. Like, they
No,
have some scenes of them holding hands, and it just seems like sweet. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess the movie clearly has been wanting us to ask these questions, but it's a really strange place to leave this film, considering it's a quote unquote happy ending.
agree. But is it a happy ending? So I guess that's the question, right?
That's the question. And I do like that ending feels like shoehorned in to a movie, whereas in a show, it could have been much more uh, handled and like, doled out over a couple seasons. And that would have been awesome.
Yeah. And would have given them a little bit more time to explore some of these things and develop some of these storylines and characters. But I think it was fun to watch. I liked it and I enjoyed it. I just I was left wanting more and more from it because they did set up certain things in a really interesting way. Apparently this is based on some YA novel. And in the novel, Peter and Will are not twins, but that I thought that was kind of an interesting twist and made the interactions between Helen and Will and Peter more interesting. Um, and I also apparently Rowan was not a boy in the book either. But I also thought that that added a different layer to feeling like you're an other or an outsider,
Hmm.
that you're going to have to process those things. But again, like I just wanted more from that. I wanted more exploration of those kinds of things because these are all pretty difficult things. And I don't know that you ever got a true resolution. I mean, we have Rowan, taking blood and being more confident. And there's a lot of understanding between him and his sister. Like Claire's looking at him when he finally gets up enough guts to come and ask Evan out. But is he asking Evan out, or is he using like the mind control thing, right? So that's also a piece where it left me honestly kind of uncomfortable for Evan throughout
Yeah,
this.
Evan, it doesn't
Like,
feel like Evan has a good ending in the story in any
no,
way.
no.
But I'm also another nit to pick on this story is Will and his choices. And I mean, maybe we can just say he's like a bad guy and he's doing bad guy things. But his decision to kill Evan and then leave his body in a bathroom at an arcade, or
Yeah,
attempt to kill him. He wasn't. Maybe he meant to leave him alive, but and then not like knowing that that was Rowan's love interest, like because he's talked to Rowan about it, and then he gets murdered by the family because he's basically gotten into a really, a really serious fight with Rowan, and then the whole family comes to Rowan's defense. Like it feels like Will is trying to commit suicide almost, but that doesn't make any sense given his character because he's mostly motivated by self-interest.
well, he is, but he's also incredibly impulsive. And so I think he impulsively did what he did to Evan. I think he actually also impulsively tried to kill Rowan.
But
And
he has like his character is based on, yes, he is impulsive and self-motivated, but he also knows that he has to do the paperwork, deal with the bureaucracy to get away with his lifestyle. Like this is why he's been brought in because he's an expert at this, right?
right,
He's gotten rid of a lot of blood stains, as he says. He's chopping up Stuart Harper's body earlier in the movie. Like this is part of his thing. So it feels uncharacteristic, even though we don't know him super well, to just like kill a kid who he knows is going to be a problem for him almost immediately, and then leave that body out in public. Like
right.
these feel
He
like
knows
two things
better.
that don't really make sense for, and maybe it's just again, they're telling the story, it's a rush to get it done, and they have to have the body left somewhere in order for it to be saved, right?
Right.
But yeah, I found that to be an unsatisfying ending for Will too.
Agree.
Like a Will character, other than the fact that he has Helen in thrall, would have been fun to have around longer.
Agree. And also, that was another piece where he starts to talk about how he had a degree in literature.
That's right.
Like, so you get that he has struggled through some of these things, that there's a little bit more to him that you're getting, and that would have been more interesting to explore to me. Like, and again, he brings that up, and so I figured they were going to go down that path, and maybe he was going to talk to Peter about that, but instead you just get this character that's just constantly taunting Helen, taunting Peter about how boring their lives are, but you never actually get him into a real conversation with anybody truly. All he really just kind of has this very thin, kind of hedonistic lifestyle that he's unapologetic for, which is fine. But it would have been interesting to talk a little bit more, have him talk a little bit more about the things that he has clearly struggled with. Um, that it isn't all punk rock or whatever he's sort of selling and shilling to them. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's another part that I thought could have been more interesting if you made him a little bit more layered and deep. But
He is kind of, to me, reminiscent of Kilgrave from Jessica Jones, where he
oh yeah,
has this mind
definitely.
control power. He kind of does whatever he wants. But whereas Kilgrave I mean, he's obsessed with one person, but he's also got like plans.
Hmm.
He's not completely, yeah, I don't know. So it's not a great analogy, but like they could have, yeah, I think you and I are on the same page. We wanted more out of this. And that's not a bad problem to have. Like we see the potential here. And I think that unfortunately it's not quite the movie doesn't quite deliver on the premise as well as it could
Agree.
have. Even though it was fun, it's a fun time. I think the ending though is problematic and just
Same.
leaves us with some wanting of a different version.
Yeah, and I did actually look up a lot because I was like, this can't just be I can't be the only one who noticed this. And I was hoping there, and that's how I found out it was a YA book, which I guess I should have known before. And so just in the interest of trying to figure out what this ending was, I wanted to see if other people had talked about it, but nobody really does. I mean, it's not that big of a movie, but I would have thought in the context of the book, maybe there was some more explanation, but that's that. I'm not curious enough to go too far down that rabbit hole. So, um, but I did enjoy watching it. I definitely think it added. It was definitely. I think it was like fun and not too heavy of a romp if people wanted to check it out. Um, I think I'd probably term it a lot more dark comedy and less gore because it isn't actually all that gory. But it's definitely got more of that Abigail type of feel, right? Though not quite as campy.
Yeah,
But we'll have to go and visit this beautiful spot in England, I guess. I just
for
want to go.
real.
I just want to go to that ruined church. It looks so cool. Um, but gonna wrap this one up, put the Radleys to bed, so to speak. And what are we talking about next time, Stuart?
So next time, I think we should delve back underground. It's not zombies, it's not vampires or werewolves, but it is Rebecca Ferguson in a spacesuit.
Well, who can argue with that? And it's also, a post-apocalyptic future.
That's right.
So,
That's right. There are monsters. You just can't see them.
right. And we're going to go delve into Silo 2. Did you stop at episode 1?
I did.
All
I
right.
kept my word.
You
Um,
held the line?
yes, it was tough, but I did it. And we will start with episode one next time here on the podcast. Yes.
Yes, we will. I'm looking forward to it. And so before we bid you adieu, if you had any thoughts about Radley's, yay or nay, and maybe if you have any thoughts or expansion on the ending, that would be great. You can email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can find all of our episodes online at reanimated.podbean.com. You can also find our podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. You just have to look for Reanimated Podcast on either of those platforms.
Indeed. So until next time, uh, ciao, au revoir, all the terrible
Nope, we're
butchering
no
of
more
other
French.
languages, all the butchering of other languages. Farewell.